see and check how good company are we for ourselves. And there are people in this world who prefer to be alone. There are people who actively search for time and space to be alone. And in the past 10, 20 years or so, especially in the New Age sector, this whole idea of retreating has become very popular. And silence retreats have become very popular. That is a way to actively look for being alone, being in a reflective mode, being immersed in thoughts or maybe certain activities even that we normally cannot engage in because of our active social life or active life of interacting with others. So there are, and of course within the Christian tradition and within many religious traditions, there are seekers and priests and nuns who actively pursue periods of being alone, being reflective. But the majority of people in the world do not look for being alone. Many of us actively pursue being in the company of others. But even if we are in company of people, even if we are in a crowd, that still is not a guarantee that we are not lonely. So loneliness is actually not so much to do with if I am alone or if I am with others. But loneliness is an inner experience and is a state of mind that we experience regardless, or can experience regardless of who we are with, or if we are alone. And so that is useful to know. Now, anytime when one experiences pain or dis-ease, uneasiness, but at a physical level it is more easy to understand. If we are experiencing pain, it means something is wrong. If there is a wrong positioning of the body, then there will be some muscle pain. That is an indication that my positioning is wrong. And if we take that to a more subtle level, if there is a certain feeling of uneasiness, a certain form of mental suffering or pain, that is an indication that there is a mental distortion, a distortion in my mental positioning. And loneliness is one form of suffering, is one form of mental pain. And maybe we could shift that around by positioning ourselves mentally in a different way. And that is something to maybe deeper reflect on. Instead of feeling scared of loneliness or feeling, suppressed by feelings of loneliness or overwhelmed by feelings of loneliness, because of a mindset that we have created. I have to be with people, I have to do certain things, I have to be able to experience certain interactions, then I am not lonely. I have to have a certain feedback externally. If I am stuck, trapped in that mindset, then we are as if conditioning ourselves to be lonely. If I position myself in this world as an experiencer, and we are here to have different experiences, then being alone is just another experience. Being with other people is an experience. Being alone is another experience. And if I position myself differently, I can explore that other experience. In silence, if there is physical silence around, I begin to see what is it that I'm thinking. What are my feelings on the inside? Can I entertain myself? What are my interests? What are my values? Even what are my hobbies? Can I express creativity? Instead of condemning a certain condition alone and condemning myself to feeling that that is bad, then I'm pushing myself into a certain direction of thinking this is bad and this is not good and I feel miserable. What if I see it as an adventure, a different experience, a new experience of this journey? The real self is this experiencer, and life offers us different experiences. Let us see it with curiosity. What does this have to offer me to learn? How can I empower or enrich myself through this situation? That may be a healthier way to position myself. And then alone doesn't need to mean misery or loneliness. I provide myself with good company of myself. And wouldn't that be nice? To have a mind that can entertain itself, to have a mind that sees beauty or at least opportunity or adventure in every situation. Mm-hmm. And there are so many things that we can enjoy. Even the body is like a miracle. Do we realize this is a miracle? These flowers are a miracle. This microphone is a miracle. Zoom is a miracle. If I have that mindset to experience the life's experiences that come on my way, with that attitude, I can enjoy every scene that the drama of life brings to me. Alone or with others. Both are rich experiences, if that is the mindset. But if that is not the mindset, then even being with others can become a torture.
Absolutely. Especially if we're programmed to take our self-value from the opinions of others. So I don't think anyone sitting in the audience would doubt the truth of what you just said. But I think that when we grow up and experience that we have to please first our parents, and then we have to please other people, and we take this image of who we are from what we do, how we're treated, the roles we play, whether it's mother, child, peers looking at us, how do I look, how do I think? When we're so programmed to have that chattering voice, especially if somehow we've learned without psychoanalyzing it, that it's a negative voice. It's a voice saying you're fooling people. It's a voice that says you're really not what you look like. How do we manage to strip that away so that we can enjoy? You know, Mickey Singer also, the same author, said, you are in there. And I think a lot of people, especially now, and we're watching children get addicted to video games, to all this compulsive behavior, filling what feels like a void. So I guess, I'm sure people want to know, what are the little steps toward achieving what you're talking about and the meditation talked about?
Yeah. Maybe a little understanding of the human psyche at this moment in time might help. And then we can explore some practices
Yeah.
to get out of this state of this false identity. Simplified, no? There is within us, there are these two sides. And this one side is this beautiful, virtuous, peaceful, harmonious being that loves peace, being that loves freedom, being that loves to love, a being that likes wisdom, the soul, the inner being, the innate being. And within the Raj Yoga context, within the Raj Yoga knowledge, we sometimes call this being also the angel. So there is this angelic side within us. But there is also this other side within us, this opposite of angel, which may not be so nice, but like a little demon sitting there, and sometimes not so little. And this, our own tendencies towards degradation, our own lower nature, that is also sitting there. But that lower nature is acquired. What is that higher nature, that angelic nature, that pure being, that is innate. But what has happened over time is we started to identify with perishable things. We started to get attached and create ego based upon things that are changing and perishable. And so we have created that lower nature because of those wrong identifications, those attachments to things that are flimsy and changing and perishable. And so these egos and these attachments, they are insecure. And insecurity is the basis for all kinds of complicated feelings, including loneliness. And so this ego within us that has grown over time is empty all the time. This ego needs someone or something to do, or some need to be entertained all the time. But the angel loves everything, loves to be alone, loves to be with others. The angel enjoys its own mind. The angel can be with God. But this ego that is like the cancer, the sickness in the soul, these wrong identities that have grown over time because of some ignorance, lack of wisdom, because of society that doesn't pay attention to the dynamics of the mind. And so these two sides are there. And when the egos are dominant, then every situation is a problem. And insecurity is an underlying current. Anxiety, fear of loss, fearing of not being loved. So this ego is always begging and needing and wanting, endlessly empty. And now to be with a mind like that is horrible for ourselves. But a mind like that also chases away others. And a mind like that cannot enjoy company, cannot enjoy being alone. And so the problem in being alone, but actually not only when we are alone, is this lower nature within us. And to get that out, we need to nurture that higher nature, nurture the angelic within us. Take the company of the Supreme mentally to reinforce that higher nature. and not feed the attachments and not feed the ego, because then that grows stronger. So to position the self as and reinforce that understanding and nurture that identity of the self as a spiritual being and an experiencer in this world innately with higher nature, innately a being of peace, innately a being of love, innately a being who is free, innately a being who belongs with and to the Supreme. And to nurture those beautiful thoughts with a certain conviction, with a certain deeper understanding, and seeing the truth of that. And we have to do that for ourselves, because we don't have a culture where that naturally gets nurtured. And so our spiritual practices, like taking time out for reflection, meditation, these type of lectures, that there are insight sessions, they all help to nurture that higher nature within us. And more that gets nurtured, more easy it becomes to stop the lower nature. And the easy way to stop that lower nature is to first stop thoughts that come from that lower nature. So all kinds of ego-based thoughts, negative thoughts, useless thoughts that come from those limited identities, limited attachments. To stop.
I'm sorry. I think that's a wonderful thing you said, a wonderful thought, because most people, I think, don't realize that they're feeding the dog that they want to die.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that until I came here and started studying here, that you don't have to do a thing. You can sit in a corner, be alone, and the thoughts will come in and you're feeding, and then it becomes a habitual thought. So methods to stop that pattern, that habituation.
Yeah.
That's what
to create beautiful thoughts that nurture the higher nature in the self. And of course, you go against the current, because that is not what generally is being stimulated. And then you come to that pleasing. You mentioned you want to please people. You are expected to behave and to think in a certain way. So you need to be able to go against the current, but at least you will be offering yourself beautiful company. And more you nurture your higher nature, you will be good company for others.
And you mentioned that it's, I'm sorry.
Feel uncomfortable,
yeah.
But in the long run, everyone appreciates.
Yeah. And you mentioned that it's insecurity. I think you used the word insecurity that keeps us from being able to take that leap.
Yeah. I mean, the ego within, these false identities, this ignorance, this limited perspective on self and life is constantly insecure. If I identify with, for example, to give a very simplified example, if I identify with my physical appearance, and I feel good and I feel secure because the physical appearance is pleasing or is good enough according to certain standards. The moment the wrinkles start coming, or hair turns gray, or start falling, or some weight is gained or whatever, that moment your sense of feeling confident is crushed, because you are depending on this physical appearance to feel good and to be loved by others. This is all our own mind construct, because most of the time it has nothing to do with what anybody else thinks anyway. But we have created a sense of security based on an appearance. But that appearance can change anytime. And it is definitely not permanent. So if my sense of self and if my sense of value and my sense of security is based on appearance, that is very vulnerable. And so I'm insecure beforehand already because I know it will not last. And this is just one example. It can be based upon job, it can be based upon other people, it can be based upon possession, position. It is all changing. And it changes unpredictably. We live in an unpredictable world. So our sense of security and our sense of identity, if it is based on something so flimsy and changing, we will always be insecure. And that insecurity makes us a beggar and makes us empty. Please give me, please tell me you love me, please like me. And then we're never who we truly are.
So when you talk, when you talk about changing the attitude and changing the thought, it's ironic that, well, we do see that first wrinkle if we put so much focus on our external appearance, or we lose that job, or we lose status. How often, I think it's just a beautiful, the magic of inviting us to go inward. Like the drama, the world will make me go inward if I forget. I lost your face there.
Yeah, sorry. I have
That's okay.
what is going on here.
Okay.
I don't know why this all of a sudden went off.
Well, we can hear you. That's good. There you are. I see your background.
I think she has moved on to another order. Oh, there she is.
You think? Okay, you're back. So I lost my train of thought. Oh, yes, that ironically, it can force us to go inward. So what we think is something tragic, like a wrinkle, can wind up being a gift.
Yes.
If we change the attitude.
Exactly. And recently we had some discussions in part of our studies that was saying life situations, they bring us exactly what the inner being, the higher being needs to be reinforced. So situations that come to us, whether it is physical conditions or illness or whatever the situation externally, it brings us exactly what can help us to nurture our higher nature. But it is always a threat for the ego, because the ego, of course, doesn't like this wrinkle and runs to get some Botox or whatever. But that situation, if I position myself differently, it helps me to value, first of all, the natural processes of matter and nature and of the body also. Because why do we condemn old age as ugly or without value, first of all? But the second thing is also it as if shows me that there are deeper things to consider, and that the real being and the value of the real self is independent of the physical appearance. And so that wrinkle or whatever the situation is, it can help me drop that ego. It can help me finish the little ghost inside.
And the other secret is that most people, I've found this out here, that when I shift away from me and what I need and what isn't being fulfilled or what I didn't get that I should have, and I shift into helping someone else, especially in a time of need. I have a friend whose daughter was diagnosed with COVID pneumonia. And she was, why is this happening to me? Why is God doing this to me? And the whole family, you know, it's easier to be angry than fearful. So everybody's angry with everyone else. And she was able to, by taking off her glasses and putting on, I call it the God lenses, she was able to focus on her grandson, who's 19, the child of the mother, and let him get it out, listen, and then comfort him by being compassionate instead of telling him he shouldn't talk to his mother that way. So there is that shift that has so much power, yet it's so quiet, I found. That's what you're talking about.
This is another thing, no? This emptiness inside is selfish. No? Whilst one way to feel a sense of value for the self, respect for the self, and appreciate our own company and our own being, is when we use time and skills and abilities for the comfort and the benefit and the well-being of others. So when we do that, first of all, we create quality of interactions with others, when we serve them, when we help them, when we help others, but also it gives, subconsciously, it gives a boost to our sense of value and self-respect. And this is a very healthy thing to do. So that is another way to come out of this, nurture this higher nature, involve the self in selfless, serviceable actions. And I remember when I was working in psychiatry and dealing with lots of depressed people and people with mood disorders, one of the advice that we used to give is at least once a day, do a selfless good deed for someone you don't know. Someone you know, okay, fine also, but there is some vested interest there. But someone who you don't know, do something good and help them selflessly. Because subconsciously it sends a message. The sense of self-worth is grows. And many of the self-help groups and I know, for example, AA also, there is a lot of emphasis on helping others also, serving others, because it helps yourself. And there is a deeper wisdom in that. So that is a very healthy attitude and a very healthy focus of certain activities of your day. Be serviceable.
So what other methods can you tell us about to achieve this? Feed the angel, not the devil.
Maybe an example. One time we were on our way to a program, and I hope I did not tell this example before in this gathering, but we were on our way to a program and we stopped by a friend of the organization. This was in Europe, this is not in America. And she is a lady from aristocratic background, so they are wealthy and rich and they move among the high society in Europe. And so this huge mansion, we pull up and she is married to a brilliant husband, a brilliant man. She has 3 sons who study in the first class universities in the world, brilliant children, brilliant future. So on the outside, you think this is a perfect life she has. And so we were with her about 20 minutes. We had about 20 minutes to stop by. And she was complaining all the time. 20 minutes complaining about this or that or the other, or the weather, or the household, or the something or the other. She was complaining. So 20 minutes later, we were kind of happy that we could move on. And we came into the program was held in a certain town, and there was, on the front row on the side, there was a young boy, about 17 years old, sitting in a wheelchair, paralyzed from his neck down. And this was from the age of 7, so 10 years already. His life confined to a wheelchair. But during the lecture and afterwards, all the time, he had a smile on his face and his eyes were sparkling. And after the lecture, he comes up and he says, life is a miracle and every moment is a gift from God. And look at this boy, look at his circumstances, and look at his attitude and his mood and his response. And look at this lady with her context and her situations. And it was 20 minutes complain and torture. Now, who is more lonely? Who will be more lonely, even if they are amongst so many people all the time? And what does it depend on? It is an inner attitude. If you can be good company for yourself, you will be attracting company of others also. And you will be good company for others also, so they will want to be in your company. But if there is this little monster sitting here all the time, demanding and expecting and wanting and needing, based on some spiritual ignorance and some dependencies and limited perspective on life and on self, then everything is a problem. And that time, that I remember very distinctly, the thought came. We were there 20 minutes, and okay, it was kind of pleasant, and we were happy we were there, but we were also happy that we could go. But she has to live with herself 24/7. What a torture, a mind like that who's always complaining. And so, what kind of mind are we cultivating for ourselves? Do we have a mind that enjoys our own company? Then we can be alone and we will never be lonely. And we can be with others and we will never be lonely. Both situations will be pleasant and new experience, part of the journey.
So when we're interacting with others, I know the blurb that I read earlier said you can be friendlier towards your inner self. We've talked about that. But what about, and to the true inner beings of those you know?
Mm-hmm.
How can we change that vibration with other people?
Again, coming back, ego is always insecure. And in insecurity, there can never be authenticity. And if there is no authenticity, and if there is no deeper sense of security, we can never truly meet the other also, because we always will meet the other through our conditioned lenses and thinking. And anyone can then be a threat, because they can deprive me from what I need. I have my needs and expectations and desires. And if they fulfill them, I'm okay. But if they don't fulfill them, I don't like it. And even if they fulfill them now, they might not fulfill them the next moment. So again, it comes back to my inner positioning. Do I come from a space of the angel who needs nothing, who is in this world to give, or the demon who is in this world to take and to acquire and get, and always empty? And if coming from that emptiness, I will meet you and see you through the lenses of that emptiness. Can you fulfill me? Can you give me what I want? Can you give me what I need? And if you can, then I'm happy. But even that happiness and that love is not authentic. It is not selfless. And you are also my potential enemy, because tomorrow you can deprive me from what I want, what this ego wants inside.
Yeah. So the opening meditation had a nice quote. It said, "The ego craves company, but the spirit wants to connect in solitude." So if we can cross that bridge for a moment, what about all those people who feel God has abandoned them, or God isn't in the room at the moment? I'm not worthy. These are hard. These are hard things to overcome, to be free.
Yeah. Again, it comes back to not recognizing the truth of ourselves. Now, if say someone, someone is rich, but is not seeing his wealth, not aware of his wealth, and keeps on begging even from his parents, saying, please give me money, please give me that, please. Parents will say, look, you have everything already. You have this huge bank account and you have all of this. No, please give me, I need, I feel so weak, I feel so poor. So that is the same way in relationship with the Supreme. We are spiritual beings. Innate divine potential is there in everyone. Children of that Supreme. All we need to do is wake up to that higher nature. Cherish that higher nature. Begin to recognize and see it and use it. Instead of asking God, oh, please help me, please help me, please help me. It is already within us. We just need to wake up to that. And this is what happens with this calling out to God, or feeling that God is not there for me, or losing hope with God. We are asking from God what already is within our own potential to resolve. And of course, aligning my mind to God's wisdom, to God's vibe, you could say, to God's attitude, to God's perspective, pulls me to that higher nature. And then it becomes easy to experience God's presence and God's company. But if I stay in that limited perspective, that ego-based sense of identity, then it is as if we are having lots of wealth, but we're not seeing it, not acknowledging it, and therefore not using it, whilst it is already there.
Yeah.
It is, someone says, I'm hungry, I want to eat, oh, please, God, give me food. But there is so much food all over the place. I'm just not seeing it because I'm in darkness.
Yeah. So instead of, feeling close with God, there are many people who do ask God for things, and then when they get what they wanted, they feel that God was good and God was listening. But I think what you're saying, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that that power is innate. The power to, because we've listened to the virtues that we have, because we've listened to that inner voice that is really from the divine, it's the divine voice, we can create closeness, compassion, love someone else better. But as you said, put on the other pair of glasses and
Use
serve.
what you already have. Instead of calling out all the time, please give me, please give me.
Beautiful.
God is a source of truth, an ocean of knowledge.
Yeah.
And so that relationship with God, God as a father, God as a teacher, is to reinforce that knowledge.
Yes.
But it is our actions and the quality of our actions that will create the return.
Right.
And part of that knowledge is to just acknowledge and to recognize, to realize, to know the self as a spiritual being,
Right.
innately divine in nature. Know the treasures that are already there. If we have to ask God, God has given everyone, but we just need to open our inner eye to see
Right.
what is already there. And
Yes.
the variety amongst us is decided by how much we use what is already there. So we don't need to call out, use what is already
Use
there.
it. Yeah. So, I forgot, but the audience is smarter than I am, that I was supposed to invite them to ask questions. So I see we have a few comments in chat. So before we go to the closing meditation, which I know you wanted 10 minutes for, let me see what's cooking here. I don't know if you can read it or not. We have an anonymous attendee saying, how to stay calm in an argument. And let me just give you the 3, okay? You can decide what you want to address. How to send peaceful energy during an argument, how to help to de-escalate the situation, and how to not get angry when someone tells me bad stuff.
I don't know, they're all good to answer. But how to send peace in a chaotic or heaty in a situation where things are coming at you. Your being upset is not going to help. When there is fire, you want to put out the fire. You don't fight fire with fire. You fight fire with water. So more internally, you are cool. That is the best way to respond to a certain situation. But to respond like that, I should not feel offended. Moment I take offense, moment I take pain, moment I take hurt, moment I take the offense, moment I feel I take things personally, it will not be possible to not get into these emotions, this turmoil of emotions. So the practice of that stage of a certain detached involvement is very useful, but also to know the self as this higher spiritual being. And this is just the part that is being acted out. And somebody says something, that is their opinion. But why do I need to take that personally? And why do I identify with what they're saying? And even if what they're saying is right, and even if what they're saying, then I should be happy. They're kind of helping me. Saying something that can help me. And if what they're saying is not right, is untrue, that also helps me to be more strong in, a certain sense of self-awareness. But not to feel offended. Don't identify. But to not identify, we need to have an ongoing, solid practice of nurturing our spiritual identity, of nurturing our higher nature. And then when a situation is unpleasant or nasty, you just observe it. Remind the self, we are in this world for different experiences, and this situation can just increase my power of tolerance, for example, my power of patience, or even my power to love. Because when situations are unpleasant, that is when you can test if you truly love. Being with people who are nice, that is easy. But being with those who are not so nice, can you still love the being behind there? You may disagree with the actions. You may disagree with the part that is being acted out. But behind there is a being, my brother, a spiritual being, a soul, my brother. And if I can love, that enriches me. My power of love increases. And so that situation, that person is providing me with an opportunity to increase my power to love. So thank you.
Beautiful. That's right. Thank them. Thank everything. Everything is correct. It's true. You've proven that very nicely.
Nice, it is easy. But
Yes.
someone who is maybe not so nice, if I can still remain at least, respectful to the being. It helps
And
me spiritually.
yeah. And I find quite often if I don't feed it, if I don't get defensive or stick up or defend myself, they quite often will realize that part of them that is the higher part of themselves will come back very often and apologize, or at least it doesn't go any further. That's the power. That's the quiet power. That's beautiful.
Diffuse, no? One question also was to diffuse.
Yeah.
We recently had this in our morning classes. If somebody is angry or somebody comes at you with that state of aggression or anger, you stay firmly stable in a state of peace. Hold that vision, that spiritual vision and that vision of greatness for the other, and smile. And if that smile comes from that pure space, it will touch that pure space in the other. And it will diffuse. And even if it doesn't diffuse in front of your eyes, at least you will have nurtured that higher nature within yourself and also within them.
There was a comment in the chat very quickly that I didn't see that said, what would Dottie Gulzar do? And I think you just knew that. You explained it. So I know you wanted a little more time than this to close. So take whatever you need. We'd be very, very honored if you would lead us in a concluding commentary. Thank you.
No, but Dadi Gulzar would definitely be quiet, focus and concentrate on soul consciousness, and see the other as a soul, as a brother, and silently just smile. Okay, so let's have some moments of practice. This is nice discussion and stimulating discussion, but at the same time to really benefit and bring benefit to ourselves. This should be a reality for us. This should be the way to see, the way to think naturally, in an obvious way. And so to always come back to some basic practices is very useful. And to realize that right here, right now, there is a manifest, a physical dimension. Objects and sound and lightning and this room and the body and this Zoom. But there is also a non-physical dimension. We ourselves actually are non-physical beings, spiritual beings, invisible experiencers, beings of consciousness, souls. Right here, right now. These are like two parallel dimensions. And so the world that we can perceive with our sense organs, but the invisible experiencer, the soul, is from that invisible dimension. And just to, as if withdraw your attention from that physical dimension and become aware of the self as this conscious, living being. And we can use the image of a tiny star sitting behind the eyes, using the eyes as windows. Living light. And this being, this real self, is an invisible guest in this body. A guest on this planet. A timeless traveler. Who belongs to that dimension beyond. The home of the soul and the home of God. And just try and grasp this with the mind. The real self is this timeless, invisible traveler, a spiritual being, immortal being. From that dimension of silence and light. From that home of God. Belonging to God, who is also a being of light, a living star, who is like an ocean of wisdom and an ocean of love. The moment I pull the mind out of the trap and the clutches of the sense experiences, the moment the mind is immersed in that invisible dimension, That moment we enter the presence of God. To experience the company with God, of God. All that is required is to pull the mind out of the hold of the ego and attachments, aligning with that highest frequency, that highest consciousness. But in that state also, we become aware that all others are also beings of light, souls, a family of timeless, invisible travelers who also belong to that home. And we travel together, living stars. In this higher awareness, there is always company. True company means minds are aligned. Same wisdom, same perspective, same aim. How wonderful, this beautiful opportunity to live a life, a spiritual life, aware of others as souls, and a life in the company of the Supreme. All it requires is to shift the attention away from the mundane and the world of the senses, and to as if shine light into that dimension beyond. And so as we continue the journey, continue in the company of angels, in the company of God, in the company of your own angelic nature. Thank you.
Oh, Shanti. You know, just quickly, you began the discussion talking about the world situation and how we're in such a state of degradation and disease right now. And I'm thinking, what better season than springtime to serve as a metaphor for our pulling ourselves out from the dirt and becoming these beautiful flowers And I really want to thank you for coming to us tonight and for leading us in a beautiful talk and beautiful meditation. Thank you, Sister Rona. Quick announcement. Did you want to say something?
Thank you. My
Oh.
pleasure and privilege.
I just want to announce to our audience that next week we have, in keeping with the theme, living peacefully and happily with yourself, the topic will be forgive in order to heal yourself. And the speaker will be Sister Hansa from Sacramento, California. So we bid you all a fond good evening. Thank you, Brother Eric. And everyone, I hope you have loved this session as much as I enjoyed participating in it. Thank you.
Thank you both, Sister Louise, Sister Rona. It's been great, very informative and helpful. And I don't feel lonely at all now. So thank you very, very much. And everybody, we'll see you next week. And if you get alone, come back. You won't be lonely. Thanks much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Om Shanti.